cine queer, pero sí de alguna manera la industria, los premios, seguirán apostando por esta apertura y la inclusión de este tipo de historias, personajes, en un sentido también quizá un poco más comercial. ¿Sería ese a lo mejor el futuro de un tipo de cine queer?
I think that's exactly what Tom was addressing before. If Moonlight hadn't happened, it couldn't have happened a few years before, and it happening a year ago, was it a year ago? 2 years ago. A year ago.
Keep track.
It opens the door for other filmmakers to take chances, and it opens the door for studios to at least have a conversation. And so I think, yes, that is the future. It's just, I think, up to also educating the audiences or letting them know, letting them learn and discover that there's more out there than Marvel movies and sitcoms.
No, I think if I understood what you were saying, it was just basically asking the question, will there come a time where it's not even queer cinema, it's just cinema? And I think that we've seen this evolution racially. I mean, we've seen this in diversity, where it was black cinema before, it was Latin cinema, and now it's just cinema. So going back to what I was saying earlier, is that I think that the world is changing. We were speaking to someone last night who opened up a first trans high school in Argentina. Wasn't it? I think it may have been Argentina. But that is a big step, right? So now you fast forward that to 10 years, where now there's just a trans schools everywhere, and now it's normal. And so I think that as we continue to educate ourselves, empower ourselves, and love the people as they are, it becomes normal. And just like everything that happened in the 60s, 70s, and 80s now is normal, I think that eventually it will get there, and it won't be queer cinema, and it won't have to be a thought, as Richard was saying, for the executive. It's just it's a regular film, So I think eventually, over time, if we continue to show that it's profitable, Black Panther being profitable now, that leads that being the first Marvel film ever nominated. You know what I mean? So now that furthers the conversation.
But isn't there a fear though that in doing that it's like having McDonald's in every country, where you don't want everything to become the same, and so you don't want it to be just a movie either. You want to still have indigenous language. You still want to have queer content. You want to have specifically Black content that isn't made for everybody, and those things can still exist, just in a different way.
Completely. I think you had said it earlier. There's a lane for everything. I just think, going back to what I understood from his question was, will there be an evolution of a time where it's not as you're only over here, right? Where Moonlight kind of, as an African-American man, Moonlight kind of straddled the lines for the culture and the community of African-Americans and the queer, and kind of brought them together in a way where there were, when I looked in the audience, there were just as much different kinds of people as I would have thought, because it wasn't just that story, but it was made in that community, so, yes.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that we brought up Marvel movies, because I think that, Black Panther is, I think, one of the most significant things that's happened in Hollywood in this century, for a lot of reasons, and we see it now with Captain Marvel, which just opened this past weekend, to huge record-breaking numbers, is that people, not just kind of art house people at a festival like this, but just a general public is really hungry for different kinds of, maybe familiar stories, but about different people in those stories that we've seen before, and that has to kind of trickle down, I think, to the rest of film and the future of film, and that there is a hunger for more. It's not that there's a limited amount of pieces of cake. The cake is kind of infinite, and I think that what the people controlling the money are seeing now is that hunger is kind of, you could capitalize on that. You can make money from that hunger, and as cynical as that sounds, I think that's very important. And it's not just the people who are seeing themselves in the film directly, but a wider audience too. So I think the more particular the stories get about who they're about, in kind of a surprising way, the more people want to see it, I guess. The more specific it is, the more appealing it is to the mainstream in a weird way.
I think that going back to the membership part, I once, 2 years ago, who can keep count? But we brought in the same year, we brought in our youngest member, who I think was 16, and our oldest one who was 90 something. So you think about the member who was 16, by the time she's fully developed and where she is, if she's in a boardroom, that completely changes the conversation, right? And then so when you're looking at these art institutions that have been around since the beginning of time, there are some people in there who would never think that a Marvel film should ever be nominated. Whether it's the Academy, whether it's the Golden Globes, whether it's SAG, and then you have other people who are in there who are like, that's all I know. And so we're seeing kind of an interesting intersection of ideas and concepts of what art is, what film is, what queer cinema is across the board.
Yeah, and I think also in terms of queer stories, specifically, like I wrote a book that was a young adult novel that came out last year, and in that process, I learned that like it's very hard now to get a young adult novel published in the United States if it doesn't have a queer character in it. They don't have to be the lead, but it's kind of a requirement. And so what you're speaking about generationally is, yeah, we're about to enter a time when the kids who are just completely used to that, to there being a constant sort of stream of queer representation, are going to be the ones dictating what's made for them, and they have purchasing power. They are the ones who are eventually going to be making the decisions. And so I think we could be looking at a completely different landscape in 20 years, which hopefully, I think it sounds like a good one, but we'll see.